Okay, well, let's get started here, and I'm sure more folks will join in the next coming minutes. But welcome and thank you all for joining us here today. Super excited to share with you more about Brex's global product, as well as talking with Ty Barton from Signifyd about how they've been able to use Brex to improve their operations and add a lot of automation to what they're doing. So really excited to have this conversation today. So my name is Erica Dorfman. I lead global financial products for the team here at Brex. What that means is we develop financial products that teams who are global can use across the world to really improve their operations, both in terms of spend management and payments. So excited to tell you more about that. And I'm joined by Ty Barton, who is representing Signifyd today. And Ty, if you want to give a quick intro about yourself.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here today. My name is Ty Barton. I'm the Senior International Accounting Manager at Signifyd. I have a background in public accounting, but I've now been with Signifyd for about a year and a half. My primary role is to manage our international accounting operations and implement financial processes and systems that improve and accommodate the unique business needs of our employees and customers in the local markets that they operate in. One of my greatest accomplishments since starting at Signifyd has been implementing Brex. So I'm super excited to share with you guys our success story.
Awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit how to manage your spend, and Ty, as the resident expert here, will give us some insights as to how they've been able to do that at Signifyd, and really keep all of your operations in one place. And that's the ethos of and sort of guiding principle of what we've been able to build at Brex, is to really just simplify your life as a global finance manager and be able to operate in one place with one tool across all of your global needs. I know we've got a really diverse group of customers joining us today, but I think one thing you do all have in common is you all represent businesses that are going quickly and also may need either now or in the future, operations coverage for teams on a global scale. So hopefully this is an interactive conversation, and I'll do another PSA for those of you who weren't on earlier to use the Q&A function to the extent that you have any questions as we go. We've got 30 minutes here today and a lot of ground to cover, so we'll get to it. We're going to give Ty the opportunity to tell us a bit about Signifyd and share sort of why Brex has been so valuable to them and their operations, and a bit of background about his role and what he's responsible for at Signifyd. And then we're going to go through 3 specific use cases for the global strategy, and what we have been able to build for teams to operate more effectively globally. So with that, I will give it over to you, Ty, to tell us about Signifyd.
Yeah, thanks, Erica. Our mission at Signifyd is to empower fearless commerce. Signifyd uses big data and machine learning to provide 100% financial guarantee against fraud and chargebacks on approved orders. This effectively shifts the liability for fraud away from e-commerce merchants, allowing them to increase sales and open new markets while reducing risk. Signifyd is a remote-first workforce, but we are headquartered in San Jose. We have offices in Seattle, Denver, New York, Belfast, London, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo. So we're very spread out and distributed. We've been growing rapidly as a company and have seen a lot of growth in our international operations. And we have around 170 to 180 employees that are located outside of the US.
So I'll ask a bit of a leading question here, but that's amazing. And all of these different locations, different time zones, different currencies, different ways of spending even. What were some of the challenges that you faced, Ty, when you were sort of a finance org thinking about spend happening across all of these different locations?
Yeah, so when I first started at Signifyd, one of our challenges was we didn't have a corporate credit card that could accommodate our international employees. So any immediate expense or transactions that they needed to conduct were, from their own pockets, and they were floating those expenses while they were waiting for reimbursements. And so, we were receiving a lot of feedback that we needed to implement a solution that was more accommodating to those employees and that would simplify their administrative duties.
That's awesome. And when you're, for these teams, what types of employees are in these different offices? Is it across different teams, or how are customers, or sorry, how are your employees spending?
Yeah, it's a diverse group of individuals. So you've got, sales and marketing who are going to events or traveling to meet with clients. You've got a lot of R&D individuals who may be subscribing to softwares or, just making other purchases. We've got HR. It's a broad spectrum of expenses that are happening internationally.
Awesome. Well, that's a good segue to talk a little bit about sort of the Brex global expenses platform. And I mentioned this before, but really when we were developing this, one of the sort of key functionalities that we had in mind is that employee experience and making sure that teams have the ability to spend everywhere. And one of the challenges that we had seen with customers who were looking like you, Ty, and Signifyd is maybe there wasn't great card acceptance for the cards that they had around the world, or employees were waiting a long time for reimbursements on outdated expense platforms that waited for international payroll cycles that can be up to a month long. So asking employees to float that expense can be really painful. Ty, I know you guys implemented the product in your London office. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that, the experience that your employees have in the London office, and how that has impacted you guys as a finance team moving to cards there.
Yeah, it's been great, right? We're able to issue them a card that's considered a local card, so it removes some of the complications with using a US based card that doesn't always function the way it should internationally. It's great. The transactions are denominated in pounds, which simplifies our reconciliations, and it's easier for the employees and managers to track. We also don't experience any foreign transaction fees, which is a huge plus and an upgrade to the cards we were using previously.
That's awesome. And when you think about the differences of going from a dollar denominated card to that multi-entity and that local pound denominated billing, can you talk to some of the specifics around what workflows that helped you do on the accounting side?
Yeah, well, for one, the fact that I could set up almost like a distinct entity within Brex. So all of our UK transactions were billed to our UK entity, eliminated the need for the intercompany transactions that we were having to manage manually before, where our employees were using a Brex card that was being paid out of the US, and we were having to reconcile those transactions and making sure that our intercompany AR and AP matched at the end of the month.
Awesome. And one thing that's consistent, and this isn't just for our global cards, but it is across all of Brex's platform, is we have a ton of automation, not just for the accounting teams, but also for employees. So when we look at what teams are able to do globally, that receipt matching and the automated expense reconciliation that I think historically teams have had, save a receipt, upload it, manage it, do an expense report, and actually go through that process quite manually and at times painfully. That exists across Brex for all of our local billing and local cards. So when we say you can save time, not just your accounting team, but also your employees, saving a significant amount of time per month by virtue of having all of the local currency reconciliation and not needing to go through the pain of filing an expense report.
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, as someone who manages from the finance side, I love that there's no excuse for an employee not to submit a receipt between all the different methods. The mobile app, they can upload it on their computer, they can forward it to a Brex email that will upload it to their transaction. There's just so many different pathways for them to do that our compliance with receipt or obtaining receipts has gone up a lot.
Awesome. And you mentioned before this, we were chatting and you're telling me a little bit about sort of how you think about recurring transactions, like office lunches and things like that. Can you speak a little bit to how you guys are using the card in different ways?
Yeah. So, our HR team will manage our in-office lunches, which employees can order through an app. Our HR team is shipping materials to employees. Same with our IT team. Our engineering folks are subscribing to softwares. And so, we started to notice a lot of patterns with the same transactions happening every month. And Brex was awesome because we can go in and automate all of the accounting categorization that happens on the back end, GLs, departments, entities. And so at the end of the month, we're not having to touch those transactions and categorizing them before syncing those with NetSuite.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's incredibly powerful. It just gives you guys, the time back and allows you to understand your expenses and your team that much better. So really excited to see you leveraging the card and platform in that way.
Yeah, I think between, not having to track down as many receipts and all the automations within Brex and just the ease of categorization, it's probably saved us between 10 to 15 hours a month in reconciling our credit cards.
That's awesome. And you mentioned a lot of locations and having, getting that global card as one of your first roles as on the team. How did you go about that process of selecting a global provider?
Yeah, so it was one of my first mandates when I started was to go find a credit card that could work with our UK entity, and we also needed to look at Mexico and Brazil where we also have offices. And as I started looking around, I found that a lot of traditional banks that provided credit cards, if we went that route, we would probably end up having to contract with multiple credit card providers for different entities. And when I found Brex, it was awesome because I found that we could, use one provider that would work in all of our locations. All of the spend was tracked in one platform, and it just made a ton of sense that all of our global spend, all of our global credit card spend would be housed in one area.
That's awesome. And for those of you watching along, you can see the slide in the background sort of highlighting a number of the regions, but this does not probably do it justice. We've got local card availability in 50 different countries across, over 20 currencies, and local reimbursements, which means that the reimbursement gets funded to your employee's bank account in that currency within a matter of days, not necessarily, sort of dependent on that payroll system if you want them to get reimbursed faster in over 75 countries. So the goal here is really that you can operate with Brex anywhere that your team is, and you can do that in local currency, pay us out of a local bank account, and really eliminate the need for having these multiple card providers or multiple systems to operate and do everything that you need to do, from expense management to card provisioning to approvals, all on one platform as a finance team, even if your team is distributed across the world or around the world. With that, comes compliance, right? So it's great to get a card and get spend in the hand of your team, but of course, want to make sure that you're, both compliant with the policies that you set up for your team, and as well as like any tax requirements. Ty, I would love to get your perspective on how you think about this and how you guys approach this at Signifyd.
Yeah, it's great because I can set up different budget policies depending on where our employees are spending from. So I can set up thresholds for what transactions need review in the UK, and the threshold can be different in Mexico and Brazil. I can set thresholds and require different types of documentation, which is awesome, depending on the market that our employees are spending in. So there's a lot of control over our budgets, and what employees are required to provide us to be compliant.
That's fantastic. And I think for us, as we built this product for teams like Signifyd, making sure that you have the flexibility to set up those policies according to what that country might need and what you guys, want in terms of expense approvals and reviews was really important, because of course, everyone sort of has different thresholds or of what they might want. And then, consistently what is necessary for, the IRS and tax compliance around the world. I know, Ty, we're working on getting you guys on VAT compliance. That's a great feature that we have here in terms of our global compliance, where teams can actually automatically within the expense submission recognize VAT taxes and rates within that expense directly, including mileage reimbursement. So it allows teams to map that directly to the GL code. And it's a really great function, particularly for teams like yourselves, where there are a lot of different locations and they may have different rates that you need to be mindful of. So we'll get you guys on that soon.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Awesome. And then, I think you spoke a little bit about this, Ty, but, as we think about the individual subsidiary needs and as we think about, what is custom, having the ability for teams to operate in local currency is really important. And what we mean by that is not just the ability to have a card in that country, but rather to be able to swipe that card, not get asked if you want to spend in USD or in pounds, right? Just get that transaction shown to you in pounds. And then as an employee, see that transaction relative to your budget in pounds or relative to your expense policy in pounds or whatever the local currency is. Again, to make that user experience really seamless for your team, regardless of where they're located. So, if you have a team in Canada, for example, not wanting to have that team need to go find the Canadian, exchange rate and determine whether or not their coffee is in policy or their taxi ride is in policy, but rather have that natively as part of the review process and never have to go and look at exchange rates again. That's a really, really powerful, user experience for your employees, but also gives you the ability as an accounting team to set local spend controls. And Ty, maybe you could talk maybe in a little bit more depth of how you've set up budgets in some of these locations to really add the efficiency to your team without needing to do that on a retroactive basis.
Yeah, we have a great use case where, our sales director in Mexico, we created a Mexico sales budget and assigned that to him, nominated in the Mexican peso. And, he has the ability to then take that budget and create different pools and nest budgets for his employees from that budget so that they're able to go out and spend as well. But he has the transparency and the visibility into what they're spending on, as a budget owner, to be able to track that and be responsible for his spending.
And how does that work for you guys as an accounting team when you go and look at that Mexican spend?
Well, it's great to see, multiple cardholders kind of rolling up under one budget, right? Rather than trying to maybe aggregate those on our own, we're able to easily see and track the spending that's coming from certain individuals or a department, and get a more holistic picture of what's occurring in that area.
And I'll call this out, that, while that budget is in pesos, on the reporting side, you're going to see all of that in dollars as well. So the benefit of that, right, is you can see, hey, all of these transactions, you're keeping track of them in pesos because they're occurring in pesos. But when you go to do your corporate, expense reviews and actually looking at, how am I spending month over month and what does it mean for my, SG&A spend or my T&E spend, being able to look at those in a constant currency basis and looking at that in dollars, even though you have that budget set up in pesos, I think, can be really helpful for teams to do the analytic and insight work.
Yeah, I appreciate that it's got it listed in both Mexico peso and USD, so I don't always have to pull up Google and figure out what the translation rate is.
Yes, that is definitely that would be painful. I think, especially if you're using these cards as a big lever for your operating teams there. Awesome. And when we think, and Ty, you talked about this a little bit earlier, but would love to dig in here further. A big part of anyone's job on the finance team is working with your ERP and making sure that as you go through your reporting and reconciliation, everything is flowing to the proper GL code and has the appropriate, currency translation, is mapped to the right entity, and you've actually gone through and gotten the approvals or substantiation for the expenses ahead of time before exporting them. So I know you guys have a great process improvement resident here thanks to Brex. So would love if you could tell us a little bit about that and how using Brex has changed your process on the ERP integration side.
Yeah, so the credit card we were using when I started, the process was to export all those transactions into an Excel document, and then we had to edit and modify that document so that we could then import that into NetSuite to record those transactions. And it was a lot of manual categorization, to the right jail accounts and the right department, and making sure everything was correct there. And it, it's an ideal because it's really hard to do that on a continuous basis throughout the month. And so, Brex is awesome because it tracks all of the transactions that for that period that need to be uploaded and recorded in NetSuite or whatever ERP you're using. And it's really easy for my senior accountant to go through and categorize those expenses as they happen throughout the month and make sure that we're obtaining the receipts, which are attached right to the transaction in Brex. So it's really easy to keep track of who's submitting receipts and which ones are missing. And then at the end of the month, if all has gone well, she's ready to push go and sync all those transactions to NetSuite day one or day two of the close, which has been awesome and has facilitated some better reporting for us.
Has that saved you time in terms of like the days to close for your month end when you think about sort of like actually finishing that month end close process?
If we weren't waiting on some other people, yes, it would have. But yes, we have pushed forward the credit card close substantially where it is, the first days of the close, we're able to finish that up and be done with it.
That's awesome. And you mentioned earlier, but we'll double click on this because I think everyone's always trying to look for ways to, save busy work and save time. And could you talk a little bit about like the actual time saved and sort of how you guys measure the success of rolling this out?
Yeah, and I talk to my senior accountant a lot and kind of measure how things are going because she's the one that's managing a lot of this day to day, and she has told me that she saves about 10 hours a month at least in just the categorization process, right? Of not having to do everything so manually, and having all of the data, the financials and the documentation all aggregated into one platform and one system.
That's amazing. And so, I mean, in terms of integrations, obviously we've been talking about NetSuite, which I think ties your primary integration, but Brex actually operates with thousands of integrations across different workflows. So whether that's Workday and syncing with your HRIS system to implement automatic integration for the employees that you have on Brex or want to issue cards to the different workflow tools that you use, Gusto, for example, same thing. And what that allows you to do is really connect Brex in with all of your existing workflows so that everything can be seamless when you think about money movement. And again, with that, integration with ERPs. And so that really, I think saves folks a lot of time, and we're adding new ones to these every day. I mean, we are always looking for ways to save and help teams operate faster and with more efficiency. So we're always trying to release new products and new features to make your life easier. I think in terms of any other, features that we make available to folks, Ty, you mentioned the team in Mexico will get you guys on Mexico local cards, which we have available today, and making sure that we've got you on all the great product suite that can work for your global team.
Yeah, I think, like, side note, one of the most impressive things about Brex have been all the new features that we've seen. The year that we've been using you guys. Your product is definitely not stagnant, and I feel like there's always new features that you guys are releasing. It's kind of like when you have a thought and then all of a sudden like your Facebook ads show you what you're thinking. It's kind of the same way with Brex where you're thinking like that would be a nice feature to have, and all of a sudden it pops up and it's a reality. So I've been super impressed with that.
Awesome. And I'll plug one feature that's coming soon, which is our reimbursement pay through payroll. I think obviously there are locations that have, you know, really specific tax needs. And so if you want to continue paying reimbursements out of your payroll, we will be supporting that in a few weeks, where you can do all the approvals within Brex and then keep the payouts and payments consistent with your payroll today. You know, I think some folks have been asking for that in some of the more complex locations. So we are happy to be continuing to release new global features, you know, all the time. I know we have just a couple of minutes left, but I see a couple of questions in the channel, so I'm gonna grab those and I'll flash this screen up again, because you know it's exciting for us and also for you, Ty, obviously, to be able to save the company that much time, and is a big win, I think, for everyone.
Yeah. Let's see. We're looking
So I
at
think I'll maybe take, Jacob, your question first. Are the cards locally denominated in Mexico, Ireland, etc.? We have them located in Mexico, Ireland, and in the UK. So we have local cards available in over 50 countries. And what that means is when you get a card, you'll have a specific entity similar to what Ty laid out for what they do in the UK. And the employees in that location will get a card that is denominated in that currency and can set up budgets and will see expenses in that currency. And then you'll receive a bill in their statement in that currency, and you'll pay Brex out of a bank account in that currency. So everything stays, to use UK as the example, everything stays in pounds, and there's no need to do any currency translation or do any, you know, money movement intercompany to, you know, change from US dollars to British pounds. And it also links directly into NetSuite in that currency. So ideally just automating that entire flow for you and not needing to make anything, you know, cross currency. And then the second question is, do we own the integration for the ERP, HRIS, or do we use a third party? We do own that integration, so you'll connect directly with Brex with your Workday. We allow you to do that through Okta and as well into some of the integrations if that's, you know, already set up. But we do have, you know, direct integrations, which allows us to automate the employee additions as well.
Yeah, and I wouldn't consider myself super tech savvy, but it was really easy to integrate Brex with our ERP NetSuite, and their instructions were great, and their onboarding team was, you know, really helpful throughout that process.
Awesome. Well, I think we are actually pretty close to on time, which is great. Thank you guys all for joining. If you have any additional questions, we will be happy to answer them, and would be happy to talk to you about Brex's global product. And hopefully this has been helpful. And thank you so much, Ty, for joining us today and telling us about how Signifyd has been able to use Brex.
Yeah, always happy to share how good Brex is with anyone that will listen.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. And we're going to end the webinar, but please feel free to ask us any follow-up questions through your Brex rep or by emailing us directly. Thank you so much.